first, let me introduce our course. The course name is The Comparison Between Chinese and Western Culture. And we take this book as the textbook. And the lecture today we will learn is Ancient Chinese Philosophy. Let's move to the first chapter. There is a very simple question, but maybe it's not easy to answer. The question is, what is philosophy? What is philosophy? What does it mean? Is it about the cosmos, the life, our thoughts? And what does it mean? Let's look. Generally, philosophy is universally defined as the study of the wisdom or knowledge about something. About what? About the general problems, facts, and the situations. And all of these problems and the facts and the situations are connected with human existence. So remember here, philosophy is a sort of study of wisdom or knowledge and related with human. It's not related with plants or animals or anything else. Okay? And philosophy is a sort of unity. And this cosmological unity is the main point in the journey of life as it goes towards eternal realities. So, and from this philosophical perspective, we should search for the cosmological unity in our life among many different choices. Sometimes it's really not easy, And let's look at the Chinese philosophy. What does Chinese philosophy study? Chinese philosophy tries to find meanings in discovering what? Discovering the true self as part of a bigger scheme. So the purpose of Chinese philosophy is to find the meaning of our true self. And let's look at something about Western philosophy. Western philosophy is more individualistic. Look at here, the characteristic of the Western philosophy. And it tries to find the meaning of life with self at the center. So after reading these 2 pages, we can find something common between Chinese philosophy and the Western philosophy. Let's turn back. We find both Chinese philosophy and Western philosophy try to find the meanings of true self or the meanings of life. That's the common thing about philosophy. But we also can find some big differences between Chinese philosophy and the Western philosophy. Chinese philosophy tends to put the individual into a big part of a bigger scheme. But the Western philosophy just tends to focus on individualistic feature and put self at the center. So that's the big difference. Okay, let's move on. Now let's move on to the next part. It's about the intellectual leaders and 4 influential schools of philosophy in ancient China. And what are they? First, let's look at the intellectual leaders. Chinese philosophy is the intellectual tradition of the Chinese culture from our early recorded history. To the present day is almost about 5,000 years. Let's look at some important figures in ancient Chinese philosophy. We know the main philosophical topics of Chinese ancient philosophy were heavily influenced by some important figures. For example, this one, Chinese Lao Zi. We can speak Lao Zi in this way, Lao Zi, according to the pinyin. Also, Lao Zi can be written in this way, that is Lao Zi. Okay? And second one is Kongzi. Kongzi, the English name of Kongzi is Confucius, is not Kongzi. And next one is Mengzi, Mencius. Okay? And the other one is Mozi. We can say Mozi in this way, Mozi, directly. And also we can say Mozi. Okay? And all of these intellectual leaders lived during or after the second half of Zhou dynasty. Now let's look at this page. Do you know this man? Now let's look at some more information. Do you know this book? Tao Te Ching. Okay, this man wrote a very great book named Tao Te Ching. So I guess some people know who he is. He is, yes, Lao Zi. Lao Zi was named Li Er. He lived from 571 BC to 471 BC. It seems that he was a long-lived man, almost 100 years. But his age was not clear to us because of the long history. That means his age is not recorded strictly, but at least we know he was a long-lived man. And he was one of the greatest philosophers and thinkers in ancient China. He was the founder of the Taoism, and he was honored as the Holy Founder. Do you know the Holy Founder? That means 教主. Okay. And his representative work was Tao Te Ching. And Tao Te Ching was the first complete philosophical works in Chinese history. Okay. Here I'd like to show one book about Tao Te Ching because I bought this yesterday. This is Tao Te Ching. Okay, one translation version. And then let's go on with the next picture. This picture maybe you are more familiar with. And who is this great man? Let's look. And there are many famous and great works about this great man, such as this book, 论语, the Analects. Also, we can translate this book in another way, that is like this: the discourses and sayings of Confucius. So, who is this man? Yes, this is Kongzi, Confucius. Kongzi, Confucius. His given name was Qiu and capital name Zhongni, and he lived in the kingdom of Lu, the Shandong province nowadays. And he was a great thinker, statesman, educator, and the founder of Confucianism. And it is said that he had at least 3,000 students, among whom 72 were most outstanding. And so he was honored as the teacher of all ages. Also, there is a very famous book about his teachings and his sayings. Remember here, this book was not written by himself. This book was collected by his disciples. Also, it reflected his political ideas, ethical thoughts, educational principles, and some famous scenes. So the book name is The Analects. The Animax has had a profound influence on the thinkers, statesmen, writers that came after Confucius. Okay, and then let's look at some pictures. From these pictures, we know where Confucius had the lessons and how the classes were going on. Okay, and also another picture. After enjoying all of these pictures, we have no doubt why Confucius was honored and respected as an ancient sage. And Confucius had built up a considerable reputation between his teachings, his thoughts. Okay, and then let's go on. The next man, this man, who is he? This man had a very famous saying, that is, if you take other people's happiness as happiness, they will take yours as their happiness too. If you take other people's sorrow as sorrow, they will take yours as their sorrow too. Okay, and also there is another famous saying, love others' elders as yours. Okay, and so we know who he is. That is Mengzi. Remember here, Mengzi. If we can't speak his English name, Mengzi, that is wrong. Mengzi, his English name was Mencius. Remember here, Mencius. And he lived from 372 BC to 289 BC. He lived in the Warring period, and he was the principal interpreter of Confucianism. And also, he was honored as the second sage. So here is the question. What is the second sage? Okay, who is the first? Okay, that's very simple. Second sage, that means this sage is only after Confucius himself. Okay, because just now we said Confucius was honored as the ancient sage. Okay, so and Mencius was best known for his claim, human nature is good. Chinese meaning, 性善论. And Mencius' philosophical thoughts in virtues, ethical cultivation, and human nature also had a great influence upon Western philosophy. And let's look at his another proverb, that is, a just cause enjoys abundant support, and an unjust cause finds little. Mencius was very important in our philosophical history. Mencius' mother was also great. Mencius' mother is always often held up as an exemplary female figure in Chinese culture because there was a very famous idiom about Mencius and Mencius' mother. Let's look at this story. Look at this picture first. We find there is a kid, and this is the kid's mother. We can suppose that this little kid was Mencius, and this lady was Mencius' mother. Now let's look at the story. Mencius' father died when Mencius was very young. So that's very sad. His mother, Zhuang, raised her son alone. They were very poor, we can imagine that. At first, they lived by a cemetery. Remember here, this is the first place where the mother found her son imitating the paid mourners in funeral processions. So therefore, the mother decided to move because she was not satisfied with this living place. Okay, the next place they lived was near a market. So what did Mencius do in this market? Mencius just began to imitate the cries of merchants. So the mother was sad too. She decided to move again. they moved to a house next to the school. So this is the first place, this is the second place, and this the third place. Now this time, Mencius's mother was satisfied. Why? Because inspired by the scholars and the students, Mencius began to study. So this time, his mother decided to remain. And at last, Mencius became a scholar. This story is a very famous story. It can be concluded with a 4-character idiom. That is, 梦三千. And from this story, we can know the importance of the surroundings and the importance of finding proper situations when raising children. Okay? And let's go on. The last man, this man with eagle eyes, who is he? This is his words. So this is 墨子. 墨子 lived from 468 to 376, and he was named Di Mo. And he lived in the spring and autumn period, also at the beginning of warring period. And also he lived in the kingdom of Lu, also the Shandong province. And he was a very famous thinker, educator, scientist, meteorist, and social activist. Also, he was the founder of Maoism. And what is Maoism? That is 墨家. And he was honored as an ancient sage. And he had a very great work, had a very great book, that is the 墨子. Also, his books and his philosophical thoughts had a profound influence in the preaching period. So these are these 4 influential intellectual leaders in our ancient China. That's all for today's lecture. What is philosophy and the intellectual leaders in ancient Chinese philosophy? Thank you very much. See you next time.